Hello, and welcome back to our Signl4 video release series. Today we are going to go over the May 2025 Signl4 release. As we can see here, I have loaded up my Signl4 web portal and the mobile app. The next enhancement we want to talk about is a new enhancement to our scheduling system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select my team, and I'm going to use my support team, and I'm going to go to the shift and duty section here in the web portal. So here we have our basic shift and duty options. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new shift for today starting at 8, as it is just a little bit before 9. And I want to make sure that we stay covered with our times. And I'm going to go ahead and add this for the entire week, Monday through Friday. And I'm going to call this my day shift. Color, we're going to change it weekly, so we have one person covering it for the week. But what you do notice down here is we have a new option for staffing. So we actually have tiers, and we have one tier and the required number of people here. So I can up this to, let's say, 2 people required for my tier 1. And then you can add new tiers here. So I can add a second tier, a third tier, even a 4th tier here. For my purposes today, we're just going to stick with tiers 1 and 2. But you can add these tiers here, allowing you to have a escalation progression inside your team. Now that this is added, I'm going to go ahead and click on the create button, and we're going to create a new shift with multiple people in multiple tiers being ready and scheduled. So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and carry my Bruce. I'm going to carry Peter for my tier 1. So I have 2 people ready on tier 1. And then I'm going to use my Robert user here on tier 2, showing this that we can have that escalation inter-team now, not just from one team to another. And you'll see here my Robert user is logged in on my phone, and he's set to be standby 2nd tier for my team. So it actually even tells you that in the app that you're not going to be the primary user, you're going to be the 2nd tier. And if I go ahead and let's switch Robert and Bruce around here, you'll actually see my status will change as soon as I get this update here in a second. And we'll see now it changes from being standby 2nd tier to now just plain on duty until 5 p.m., meaning now I'm tier 1. So tier 1 is always going to just show as on duty, but your subsequent tiers will show that you are on duty, but you're in standby mode, and it even lists the tier that you're in standby mode for on the duty. So what this means is if an alert does come into my team, it's going to alert the Peter and Bruce users right off the bat because they're on duty and they're on tier 1. However, the Robert user will not receive the alert because he is not on tier 1 duty. He will only receive the alert after the escalation. And what we do have here is under our signaling options, we have a new escalation option here for notify next shift here after so many minutes. And you can edit this again, just like you can with your signal response time. So by default, it's set to 10 minutes, meaning after 10 minutes, if tier 1 has not acknowledged and or closed the alert, then it will go up to the Robert user, which is my tier 2. And then after 10 minutes after that, if it's still not acknowledged, it would go up to a tier 3 if I had it, and then a tier 4 and 5, so on and so forth, until it reaches the end of my inter-team escalation. Okay, back to my alerts here. I'm going to go ahead and send an alert just so we could see what this is going to look like inside of the alerts themselves. And we'll see that the Robert user will not receive this alert. So we have a new alert sent, and we'll actually see the numbers increase because it will be a new alert. So I see the numbers, but I will not receive the audible alerts. I won't receive a push, an email, a text, or a phone call at all, no matter what my settings are for the Robert user. But the Peter user did receive the alert, and let's go ahead and take a look at this alert itself here. So I'm going to go to my signals, and here's my brand new alert. And if I click on this to open it, we see that here's the information, but what I want to focus on here is the notifications. So we'll see that the targeted team was support. We'll see the on-duty notification for Peter and Bruce. Unfortunately, I don't have 3 phones, so Bruce isn't logged in on a phone currently. But the Peter user was alerted, as we see by his notification profile. He received both a push notification and an email. He just has not received a phone call or a text message because that's delayed currently. And then the Robert user has not received any options because he was completely delayed because he is tier 2. So he actually receives it And we even give you a nice little countdown here showing you how long it is before the escalation to this tier occurs. And then if my user, in this case, the Bruce user or the Peter user, goes ahead and acknowledges the alert. So I now have the acknowledgement up here. We'll actually see that the countdown and the second tier leaves because they will not be notified now that the alert has been acknowledged and the escalation is no longer necessary. Now, another thing to note here is that this new tiered escalation approach actually works for call routing as well. So any incoming call routings we have set up will actually follow the same escalation path that we have set inside of our tiers. And in addition to that, it will actually call every single person on an individual tier before it escalates up to the next tier. So in this particular case, if somebody were to call in my call routing phone number, it would hit either Peter or Bruce in the round robin fashion. If that person does not answer, it will continue on to the next user in line. And then if that person does not answer, it'll actually escalate up to the next tier and call that person. So it'll actually rotate through your users now instead of just calling one user and if they don't answer, leaving a voicemail. Now, the one note on this option is for this to work, we do need to make sure that the voicemail detection is turned on. If that option is not turned on, it's just going to leave the voicemail with the first caller that it hits. So we want to make sure this voicemail detection is turned on, and that allows it to escalate through each tier individually and then escalate up to the next tier if needed. And we can see that in action here now. Let me go ahead and share a second phone. So as we can see here, I'm now sharing both phones. We have the Robert phone on the left, the Peter phone on the right. And so Peter is on duty until 5, showing he's tier 1, and Robert's standby in tier 2 here. Now, what I am going to do is I'm going to change my schedule a little bit because the Bruce user doesn't have a phone, so we don't even want to try to call him. So in my instance, I'm going to go ahead and remove the Bruce user and just leave it as Peter's on duty on tier 1 and Robert's on duty in tier 2. So now I'm going to go ahead and maximize this out. And I'm going to go ahead and have my good friend here give me a phone call to set this up so we can see this in action. So here we see we have the incoming phone call. And it is set because it's saved in my phone book. So it does tell me who's calling. But normally we would just receive the phone number. And what I'm going to do is we're going to say that the Peter user was unavailable. So he's going to go ahead and decline this. What's going to happen is this is going to force the phone call to Peter's voicemail. It's going to ask the user to click a button to ensure the voicemail it's not a voice box. When no button is clicked, it's going to register the fact that it is a voicemail, so it's not going to leave a message. Instead, at that point, it's going to call the next person in line. In this case, that's going to be the tier 2 user of Robert. So this can take up to 30 seconds or so, depending on how fast the phone is. But as we can see here, it's calling my new user. And now it escalated up to the second tier because the first tier did not answer, showcasing how our new tiers work within the call routing tree. But that's how the call routing uses the same escalation paths as the Signl4 alerts with this new inter-team escalation. Thank you for watching and have a nice day. Goodbye.